How are you? I'm glad to meet you. Today's topic is the Israelites' 42 campsites in wilderness, chapter 4. The author is Abraham Park. Dhovka is the 8th campsite. Numbers chapter 33 verse 12. Meaning, Dhovka is interpreted as stone or metal, malachite, or drover. Malachite is a green-colored mineral, a class of gem used for decorative purposes and also as raw material for cosmetics. The word is derived from dāpaq, meaning to beat, to knock, or to cattle, hard. Location. Dhovka is located about 50 miles, 80 kilometers, northwest of Mount Sinai. It is thought to be what is Sarabit el-Qadim today. Event. This is the first camp after the Israelites' departure from the wilderness of Sin, where manna came down. There was a well-known copper mine in this area, and the Egyptian dynasties mined their copper here. Lesson. It is estimated that the Israelites remained in the wilderness of Sin for at least a week as they enjoyed eating the manna. They experienced how manna came down every day and twice on the sixth day. On that day, everyone gathered twice as much, and it did not become foul, nor was there any worm in it. On the seventh day, manna did not come down at all. Exodus 16:22. It was at this place that they were rebuked for their disbelief and disobedience, and they learned to keep the Sabbath on the seventh day. Exodus chapter 16 verse 22. The Israelites may have been complacent and wanted to settle down as they began to eat manna. They remained in the wilderness of Sin for quite a long time. God probably had to drive them out, as the meaning of Dhovka indicates, to move them to the next camp. There was also a time when Jesus had to drive his disciples across a lake on a boat after he performed the miracle of feeding 5,000 people, Mattew 14:22. Here, the Greek word used is anankazo, meaning to necessitate, or to compel. Perceiving that they were intending to make him a worldly king and a political messiah by force, John chapter 6 verse 15. Jesus separated his disciples from the crowd so that they would not be swept away by it. Likewise, when God pushes and demands of us beyond our understanding, we must realize that the providence of God's love is at work. Alish is the 9th campsite. Numbers chapter 33 verse 13. Meaning, Alish means a crowd of people, rugged land, or I will knead dough. Location. Alish is located about 11 miles, 18 kilometers, from Dhovka, toward Rephidim. It is known as Wadi el-Esh today. Event. Alish is topographically rugged as its name suggests. The hearts of the Israelites were probably becoming hard like the land of Alish because they had been eating the same manna in the same way every day. Lesson. Manna first came down in the wilderness of Sin and continued to come down in the same manner around the campsite in Dhovka as well as in Alish. In the beginning, they ate manna without cooking it. Exodus chapter 16 verse 15. It tasted like wafers with honey. Exodus chapter 16 verse 31. However, 6 days after manna started coming down, God told them, "Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over put aside to be kept until morning," teaching them how to prepare manna. Exodus 16:23. Numbers chapter 11 verse 8 states, "The people would go about and gather it and grind it between 2 millstones or beat it in the mortar, and boil it in the pot and make cakes with it. And its taste was as the taste of cakes baked with oil." The expression "with oil" is semen, in Hebrew, referring to the olive oil used to knead dough. This is a hint that the Israelites made cakes from manna by mixing and kneading it with oil. The word make in Numbers chapter 11 verse 8 is in the perfect tense, signifying that they have cooked manna from before Taberah, where the events of Numbers 11 take place. On the basis of the meaning of Alish, I will knead dough. It is estimated that they had begun to mix manna with oil and cooked it from the time they were camping at Alish. Although the Israelites made the dough, it was God who sent down the manna and taught them how to cook it. All things in our lives are kneaded by God's providential hands. 1 Chronicles chapter 29 verse 11. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 1. Isaiah chapter 64 verse 8. Therefore, we must have the faith that humbly trusts in the Lord, confessing, "My times are in thy hand." Psalms 31-15. Rephidim is the 10th campsite. Numbers chapter 33 verse 14. Meaning, Rephidim means plains, a resting place, or a place of Sabbath. The name is derived from Rephidim, which means lamp or torch. Location. Rephidim was a beautiful oasis located about 12 miles, 20 kilometers, northwest of Mount Sinai. It is located between the wilderness of Sin and the wilderness of Sinai, Exodus 17-1, 19-2. It is known as War Faran today. Event. Rephidim originally was abundant with water, but it was suffering from a severe drought when the Israelites arrived. There was water at Marah, but it was too bitter to drink. Adding to the disappointment of the Israelites, there was supposed to be plenty of water in Rephidim, but this was not the case. The grumblings of the people became worse because of this water problem. Eventually, they quarreled with Moses to the point where they almost stoned him, Exodus 17-2. They even quarreled with God, asking, "Is the Lord among us, or not?" Exodus 17-7. In such a desperate situation, Moses cried out to God and prayed. Then, God told Moses to strike the rock at Mount Horeb. Moses obeyed and did as God had commanded him, which resulted in a gush of water sufficient for 2 million people to drink from. According to the description of this event in Isaiah chapter 48 verse 21, God split the rock, and the water gushed forth. Psalms 105-41 states, "He opened the rock, and water flowed out," and Psalms 78-20 states, "He struck the rock, so that the waters gushed out, and streams were overflowing." Furthermore, Psalms 114-8 states that God turned the rock into a pool of water, the flint into a fountain of water, and Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 15 describes it as God brought water for you out of the rock of flint. Moses called this place Massa, and Meribah, Exodus 17-7. Massa means test, and Meribah means quarrel. Moses gave these two names to the sites so that people would not forget the Israelites' act of disbelief by quarreling with Moses and doubting the existence of God over the problem of potable water throughout generations. Psalms 95-8. Immediately after this appalling display of disbelief, Israel was attacked by the Amalekites. At that time, Moses prayed to God with his hands lifted up. Aaron and Hur helped him by supporting his arms, and God allowed them to gain victory in the battle against the Amalekites, Exodus chapter 17 verse 8. There, Moses built an altar and gave it the name Jehovah Nissi, "The Lord is my banner." Rephidim is also the place where Moses, with the advice of his father-in-law, Jethro, selected able men, who fear God, men of truth. Those who hate dishonest gain and the like, and put them in charge over the people, leaders of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. Lesson. As a result of the complaints against God, the beautiful land called a resting place, and a place of Sabbath, became a dark and gloomy place of testing and quarreling with God. There is no peace for the wicked who grumble against God. Isaiah chapter 48 verse 22, 57-21. Although they tested and quarreled with God, God's abounding mercy allowed water to come forth from a rock in Mount Horeb, and he granted them the grace to gain victory in the battle against Amalek. This is an evidence of God's everlasting loving-kindness, who shows compassion and mercy even in the midst of wrath. Isaiah 54:8. The author of this content is Reverend Abraham Park. Reverend Abraham Park was an acclaimed world-class theologian with remarkable pastoral spirituality. He had dedicated his entire life to prayer and the Scriptures, having read the Bible over 1,800 times. Throughout his lifetime ministry, he was a true pastor who loved the church and the congregation like his own children. His daily schedule consisted of 2-hour prayers and 3-hour Bible readings, as well as continual preaching and evangelizing. With conviction that to die is to live, he prayed deep in the mountains for more than 3 years. When the sun set, he did nothing but pray. When the sun rose, he did nothing but read the Bible. Then, finally, a single ray of grace shone upon him. Through the powerful illumination of the Holy Spirit and by the grace of God, the scenes in the Bible unfolded like a panorama before his eyes. These scenes were written down on large arrowroot leaves which were bound with a twig. They were later transcribed onto paper bought from a village under the mountain every few months. This is how the Reverend Abraham Park's sermons began. Many people are impressed by the Reverend Abraham Park as follows. How can a person love so many people? How can a person make such a big impact to so many people? He is so hard-working, never rest. He never ceased to pray. He deserves to be truly honored for his dedication for the church and the congregations. A true and faithful worker of God. This concludes today's message. Thank you very much. God bless you. I wish you have a good day.